Okay. Okay. So first of all, thanks a lot, sir, for joining us today and to help students know more about the election committee and how the process goes. So first, since you have chaired the medical committee last year and things have been pretty tough, especially in this pandemic situation, why do you think students need to involve themselves in the council and what role do they have to play as such?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I will speak from it, about this from my experience at the medical committee as chair of the medical committee. And also, I've been associated with COSA for a while. So I've had a chance to see how students participate there as well. It's also taken us a while to get to this point where students have representation on these committees. I think the last year, the first student council that was elected was the first time there was formal representation of students. I think the major point here to make is that inevitably in both of these committees, having students has meant that every discussion we've had, they have been privy to, the process of how, the thought process that is working behind a decision. I think in many cases, students have actively participated and, given feedback on certain things. We've gone to them asking for opinions on, would this work or not? I think so obviously all committees that have representation, this is, this is the case. And so if you have to think of it from the perspective of why students need to participate in electing a council, I think that kind of representation does bring students in contact with not only the decision-making process, but also, helps you have a voice in these committees in a way that, from outside being able to communicate this, you can say, you can still do that, but this ensures that, there is direct presence in the committee and, students have a chance to see the process as it is happening, comment on it, and even shape the same, right? So that's my major, that's why I think this is very important for students to participate in and contribute towards. I think it's, as it's famously said, I think you have to be the change you want to see. So if you want things to improve, if you want things to change, participation is hugely important. It can be challenging sometimes, but it's needed, for us as an institution also, for IISER to grow, that students see this as being of value.
Yes, yes, that's true. And like many of us know how crucial it was for the medical council to remain vigilant in the given circumstances. Can you give us like a few examples of how the institution committee worked towards easing the process?
Yeah, so obviously, see, students have had, as far as the medical committee goes, they have been direct participants from the time that elected members have been part of the committee, which means they are privy to all processes that happen. Any directive that comes to the medical committee. The medical committee is set up in such a way that emails that come to the medical committee go to all medical committee members, and that includes the students, right? So even if you are not actively commenting on things, you understand, what kind of conversations are happening. You get to see, what considerations are being made, and obviously when you feel strongly about something, you also have the opportunity to comment on this. So I think the pandemic was a very striking example of how a team like this of not just faculty but faculty with student council members could come together and do something for the institute that I think would have been very difficult for any of these parties to do without the other, right? So I think for the medical committee, in many situations, we've gone to students through the student council members and asked them to speak to other students, find out what the general consensus is like, are students in favor of something like this, what the challenges would be. Student council members also have had a chance to convey some of the, concerns that students have written to them with, right? So students also there is a certain comfort in being able to write to a fellow student member rather than a faculty. And so students have also used that, very effectively to communicate with student council members, which has been very useful for the committee to kind of hear from students through that way.
Yes, I think there was a form about mental health as well, an FAQ form about mental health in this pandemic, and a lot of students wrote back as well.
Right. So I think, so there is a very active way that the student council members can participate and, can contribute to the process.
Yes. So since the newest batch has not been on campus, it would be great if you could give us a brief of how the council works. Like, for instance, how do students put their problems forward in the council? And what are the factors that you discuss before taking a decision?
Right. So when it comes to, so I'm not privy to the entire discussions that happen in the student council, because the student council holds meetings. And there are some faculty representatives who are attending those meetings. I have not attended a student council meeting to see how the student council debates or discusses matters. At the level of the medical committee, we've had 2 members. I think as part of COSA also, we've had 2 or 3 members of the student council who have been, who have formally been appointed as members. I think they are complete, full participating members, right? So that's that says everything, in the sense that they are privy to all conversations that happen. They are privy to the decision-making process. They are privy to commenting on, queries. When a query is sent, what does COSA think of this, or the medical committee thinks of this, what do medical committee members think? We are expecting opinions from everybody, including the student council members. So you are a, full participant in the process, which means I think in many of these situations, medical committee members of the student council were able to go back to the student council per se and explain, some of the decisions that have been made, or at times bring questions that have been raised in the student council to the medical committee, and be part of discussing that here before they took back responses from here, right? So this has been, fantastic to have that kind of access, that students now have, to these committees firsthand, right? So that's, I think, I'm also hoping students do talk to the committee members. So if you know who the medical committee student members are, you can always go talk to them to understand how something was decided, or, why did you guys not do it this way? And they are in a position to explain to you as well. So that's been the major kind of role students have played.
Yes. So how does the student council maintain fluent communication and make decisions, especially when, the platform is virtual?
Right.
Did I lose connection?
Yeah, No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you. See, obviously, it helps to have regular meetings with the student community, right? And now, because it is virtual, I think there is also this flexibility that you can have a meeting without um, without leaving. So I think we lost Darshini for a minute there. We'll see if she can come back in, and then I'll continue my response. Yeah, we're just waiting for Darshini to come back and join the meeting. Let's see if she's able to join back.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think my internet cable.
Yeah, that's okay. Can you? Um,
Yeah, I'll repeat what I was asking.
yeah, maybe you can
So
repeat
how
the
do
question. Yeah.
yes, so how does the student council maintain fluent communication and make decisions, especially when the platform is virtual?
Yeah, so I personally think that there are genuine advantages to now us learning how to use the virtual platforms effectively, right? I think previously committee meetings would have meant people had to physically be there, and sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. Um, but I think the student council can effectively uh, communicate with a larger group of students and do this now virtually through meetings like this, right? And So one big plus, as I see it, for the student council now is that there is actually an additional way to kind of communicate or talk to a large student audience on a regular basis. So even if the student council does a monthly town hall meeting, right, and people get to write in questions, and the main questions are all picked up and addressed by respective members of the student council, it becomes a way for students to know what exactly is going on and how processes are working, so to speak. I think the tricky part in any communication is that, and this is true for all parties involved, not just the student council, but also student members, is that when you have elected representatives, I think keeping the communication, the conversation respectful, agreeing to disagree at times, and making sure that people are held accountable, but this is done with the right decorum, I think is something, this process also teaches all of us. These communication sessions that the student council can have with students, how do students get answers, without having to scream and yell, and how does the student council communicate without also losing its cool? I think this is an important aspect of having a student body, that I think this student council on campus gives all of us, not just students, but trust me, faculty also, an important learning experience, right? Because Sometimes there will be hard questions. You have to learn to take them respectfully and respond the best you can. You will not be able to answer everything that everybody wants to know, and you have to be okay with that too. So I think the critical thing here is having a line of communication, and also making sure that that line of communication stays respectful.
Yes, yes. So as a student council member, one gets to work in very close quarters of with the institutional bodies. So apart from that, why would you recommend that students dedicate this additional amount of time apart from academics, which is already quite heavy for everyone?
Right,
So
right. No, it's a very important question to think about, saying, what is it that I am gaining from this, right? I think one major thing personally, I feel that every student who participates, I think gains, is that you really learn how to work with a diverse group of people, right? And this is a life skill. It's not just about your time at IISER. It's a life skill that you learn, because there will be other organizations, committees you will be part of, where you will have people that you may not agree with, you may not see eye to eye, you will, and still being able to work with them is a huge skill. And there are very few things, I think, that teach us how to do this. I think being part of the student council is, and also many of the committees that many of us faculty serve on, I think is an opportunity for all of us to learn how to do this, and how to do this well. There is no training, which means you will suck at it to begin with. You will make mistakes, you will learn from your mistakes, and you will get better. But I think if you ask students who have been part of committees, how they began and how they finished, I think there is a significant amount of growth in their perspective on how to work with a situation, how to work with people that you acquire in the time that you are doing this as part of the student council. So I think this is a big um, learning. I think you also are privy to some of the processes, that what seems like a very straightforward decision outside is sometimes a very complicated decision to make. Until you sit on a committee and understand this, you don't appreciate it, right? So there is a certain element of that that you learn. I think you learn how to manage your time significantly well, because these additional responsibilities means you need to be able to devote time accordingly, and so that's a skill that you acquire as well, right? And I think going forward, I'm sure people who have been students who have been part of the student council can claim this as something that is a real life experience, along with like, I think organizing Karwa, I think is a spectacular life experience. I'm sure it teaches you so many different things. And so similarly, I think this is something that you will significantly benefit from. There is a social responsibility here, I think, which some of us will also see as of value. That this is, in some sense, something that you're donating your time for, and you think the cause is bigger than you or me, and you're trying to do something for the community at large. And that also is something that many of us feel passionately about. And if you do, that's also a good reason to do this, right? So there is a significant personal growth that I think you will see in yourself in the time that you've been part of the council.
yes. So since we have 5-10 minutes more, I would ask if any of the audience has any questions. They can put it in the chat box or unmute themselves and ask.
Yeah, anything you wanted to know, go ahead. I'll be happy to answer the best I can.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, please. Could you identify yourself?
Hi, I'm Abhilash. I'm a
Abhilash.
fifth year student.
Yes, Abhilash.
I'm sorry about this slide.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about
Sort
it.
of darkened my face. Anyway, I'm Abhilash, fifth year student. I've sort of been friends with the council, I would say, or more friends with the constitution actually. Nevertheless, so my question is, so last year the council had a major gap from what I observed between the students and the council members because none of the town halls or whatever we expected from the council is not. Uh, I would not say delivered because that'd be blaming them. They're not to be blamed, but it wasn't possible for them to execute whatever was supposed to be done in a normal year. So I think the first years have the impression. I'm really glad that 16 of these people, out of these 16, at least about 10 or 12 are from the first year, which is shocking because the other town halls barely had any attendance from the first years. So I think the juniors have a sort of opinion that the council is somewhat similar to every other club because there's a very limited participation and the perspective they see the council is from a distant body that does its own work and sort of they don't perceive it as a thing of the students. So is there something we could do to change this, because this is my diagnosis of the problem, because
Right.
I've not seen much attendance here or in previous town halls, especially
Right.
from the first year. Because last year I remember the first year very very actively asked for even voting rights and
Right.
membership rights, but this year participation has been toned down, quite
Right.
toned down, I would say.
Right. No, I think, of course, this year is unique in some senses. Many of these students have not been on campus. I think, so there is obviously that element of not knowing the people who are, standing for elections, or, not knowing what being on campus feels like and why, those issues, need some representation from students. But I think, one thing to consider is that it takes time for these organizations and bodies to also evolve to being what you want them to be, right? And we've just had one student council that has got elected and has done its completed its responsibilities. I think it's important for this to continue. It may take a few years before um, all the little niggles that exist in whether it be communication, in how the council works, how the council learns to get what it wants done, completed in the tenure that it has, all get better. And, this council will learn from the mistakes of the previous council, and so on, right? Before we get to a point where there is a certain, level of knowing what this group is trying to accomplish in the next year, right? So my suggestion is that, obviously there are new ways of communication now, and you guys should learn to use it well. It is an incredible tool. I cannot tell you, the fact that we can do this now, right? And I could make time at very short notice to do a session like this is possible because of this technology, and this is available to all of you, right? So you can, actively encourage the council to be more proactive this way, but also understand that it takes time for these bodies to evolve to a place where processes are in mechanisms are in place, and they understand how to assimilate what's going on, and also be effective at what they are trying to do. Because many of them are, it takes 3 months maybe to kind of get a sense of how each committee is working, right? And then you learn how to voice your opinion in those committee meetings. You learn to understand what the issues are, and it's almost by the time you are ready to be effective, your 1 year term has almost come to an end, right? So yeah, so I think it takes time. So my hope is that the previous council will speak to the current council, right? Because that's a big learning that they have had. We do this for committees like mine as well, right? The medical committee, the current chair Tejas served on the medical committee for 2 years before he became chair. This was vital because you could see the processes, you could learn, and I still am regularly in touch with Tejas. He comes back when he has a query, and so this is vital. That communication is vital. So my suggestion would be that the current student council also actively mentors, the past student council mentors the current student council to say, guys, this is what you should focus on. This is how this works. We've tried these things. This doesn't work. Why don't you guys try that? Right? Otherwise, you will be making the same mistakes the previous council has made, and we're wondering why there is no progress. So be patient with the student council. It's important for us to do this every year, and it may take a few years of doing it before we start getting a sense of, okay, this is what we had in mind when we said student council, and it's taken 4 or 5 iterations before we are getting close to that, that level.
So my anxiety is from a point where the coming council would not even form because they sent out an email saying there's nobody standing. So
yeah, so I
that
just,
is
yeah, that will be terrible. I mean, I really hope that students, particularly, I think students who have been part of the system for a bit longer, I think see value in this, right? And as I said, I think I will also encourage, see, there are many among us who really have, capability in terms of not just being able to see issues, but be able to communicate, those issues well. People who are perceptive enough to understand, people who listen well, who are, good at leadership roles. I think you should encourage friends of yours who you think have those capabilities to participate, right? And now they may have hesitation saying, well, I don't want to get involved in this. This is just going to be too much work. I think as a student community, if you can assure them that, no, there will be support from all of us, that you guys should, this is important for all of us. And, you will be able to do this better than I will. If I could, I would have done it myself, right? I think this encouragement also goes a long way, because sometimes people don't see it. They don't see that they have this capability. Others have to point it out to them and say that, no, consider it, because you will be good at it, right? So also encourage your friends that you know of. Of course, if you think you want to participate, you should, right? I really think that there is a significant opportunity here for you to learn and understand a lot of nuances, of how to work in a group, and that's a big life lesson. So I will also urge, Darshini is here, for the, maybe members of the current student council to come and speak, right, to the student community, to say, what is it that they gain, see, it is tough. You will have there will be moments where things will seem very difficult, but you also gain a lot at the end. Once you step out of all of these roles, you look back, and that's when you realize, okay, I'm a very different person now than when I started on this. So consider this, yeah, and encourage your friends too, who you think will be suited for something like this.
Yes, we are actually planning on having a session like this with the previous council members as well.
Good.
And if anyone else has any questions.
Yeah, Jasveer has put his.
I had a query regarding the last point. Considering the just new second years, we I guess, in my opinion, we have a large knowledge and like cultural gap with respect to our seniors regarding the inner working of the campus. So, like, would it be feasible in these conditions for a second year to become, for example, in the low probability, as general secretary?
Yeah. So see, the thing is, I think, first you have to participate. I think unless you participate, you don't have, there is no possibility, right? So if you think this is something that you want to, be involved in, see, there are now many ways for students to be able to communicate what your opinions are, right? See, when you're electing a member for a student council, you're electing them for what they are capable of doing. What is it that they see as important, that you think is also important for the student community, right? So that kind of connect, it is possible for students who have not been on campus, to also have, right, with the student community. So I don't think that's completely not possible, right? It may take some work on your part. I think canvassing, for example, maybe online rather than in person. But you can have meetings with whoever wants to understand what your stand or position is, right? And that could be useful, to a useful way for you to communicate what is it that you see as important, and how you see, what kind of changes you see as important that need to happen, that you will try and focus on. Right. I think participation is important, whether it be as somebody wanting to stand for the student council, or students wanting to know who the members are who are standing. Right. Students have to feel that they should be involved, and I think this is a general problem. Right. I think in our country, general elections, the voting percentage is fairly small. Right. So there are a lot of people who don't vote. Right. So you have to do your best, encourage as many people as you can to participate. And it's important to know that this has implications. If you think, no, student council is just, there for namesake, I absolutely don't think so. You guys really, and I think the setup in IISER is such that there is real representation, there is a real voice. Students can communicate and bring to notice, many of the concerns. Not everything gets resolved like you want, right? And that's part of the process. But clearly you have a voice. And so for those reasons, it is worth considering to both participate as part of the student council and also as members of the community interacting with the student council.
So like in this case, would it be like possible to establish an actual system for the proper transfer of power if this case happens, to teach the junior, like us, the second years, the reins of the community?
Right. So that's what, see, there is already a student council that exists. That council will speak to all of you, right? And one way to for you to do this is also kind of see if individual members have mentors from the previous student council, right? So I have queries, can we assign one person to the current student council member so they can go back and ask queries that they may have, right? This is something that you can put in place. See, the thing with something like the student council is, you guys are also creating the system. Okay. So this is both the good part about this. This is also the challenging part about it, that you are creating a system that will now allow you to do what you're thinking of doing. And so what will work well, what will not, these are things that you guys also have to figure, right? So come and talk to faculty, because some of us have done this in different contexts. So we may know why it's important to have a mentor, because there are questions, right? And you won't know whom to ask, right? So can we assign a mentor. If there are 10 previous student council members and 10 new incoming members, each one is assigned a member, right? And so this kind of, mechanisms you will learn to put in place. So come and talk to faculty that, we think this, can you suggest how we can do this? This we think is a problem. They may have some suggestions that you can then think about and decide, okay, this might be actually a good way to do this. So there is a fair bit of learning, like research, there isn't an answer to begin with. You have to kind of stumble around a bit, make your mistakes, learn, and then eventually, discover what works.
Yeah, that concludes for now. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think since we don't have more questions and we're already over time. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, sir, for taking time out for informing us and creating an awareness among students about the student council. And yes, with that, we come to an end of this session.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me, and good luck to all of you. Okay, thanks for attending.
One more doubt.
Sure.
Does the general secretary have the power to appoint a treasurer or student conduct head, or like all the power resides within the general secretary himself?
So
themselves.
So as I said, the student council, how it operates within them is again something that the student council decides. Okay, so there can be an internal voting system that you guys all agree to put in place to say that the general secretary is elected. I don't think anybody else is elected, right? And so everybody else can be elected from within the student council. So there can be a vote within the student council for, who should be secretary and other positions, which the student council has a way of figuring out. I don't think that's written as to how it should be done. Okay, so you guys have the flexibility to do this. So one of the challenging things about any such group is creating consensus. Getting enough people to agree to do something one way, I think is what you will learn more than ever before as part of this. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who attended. Thanks, Darshini, again.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks.